Hello, and welcome to Autology, the podcast that brings you the latest on automotive technology. Today's episode is called Kit for Cars, Making AI a Reality. And you're here with me, Alicia Thakalal, and S&P Global Mobility's Connected Car and UI/UX analyst, Vivek Berrywell, alongside Venkat V, Head of Strategy Connected Vehicle Practice at KPIT. Hello to you both, and thank you for joining Autology today.
Hi, and thank you.
Thanks for having us.
No worries. Lovely to have you both here. So, today's podcast is all about AI powered language models or LLMs, the kind we've seen on TV, like in Knight Rider, for those who got the KITT reference. And, while we're used to seeing like robots and the like being some part of some sort of action movie, the sort of logical first question that I have for this podcast is what practical uses would LLMs like ChatGPT, for example, have in a car in the immediate future? Perhaps you can kick off proceedings, Vivek?
Well, that's a great question to start with. Large language models like ChatGPT really have diverse use cases in an automobile, both from an end user perspective as well as automaker's perspective. So, if we talk about an end user, that is the driver, these can be used to create personalized voice assistants, provide car health and smart manuals that can replace physical manuals. Plus, these chatbots can be really handy for in-car navigation purposes. First and foremost, they can be used to generate a highly capable voice-controlled navigation system that allows drivers to input destination and other commands using natural language. Next, they can also analyze a driver's past navigation history and predict their likely destination. They can evaluate real-time traffic data and update the driver about traffic conditions and alternative routes, not to mention recommendations on points of interest. So that was from an end user perspective. If we talk about at an organizational level, OEMs and component suppliers can leverage LLMs to enhance customer service, support sales and marketing, improve manufacturing processes, and even optimize supply chain management. A good example would be Mercedes-Benz here, which is currently testing ChatGPT in enhancing its MO360 digital production ecosystem. So they're already optimizing analysis of production data for quality management. Another area of focus for Mercedes is to leverage ChatGPT and provide their employees with a single AI-based digital contact person. Currently, I think they're running a pilot phase, and once they're done with that, they plan to use ChatGPT throughout their global production network.
Understood. Thanks for that, Vivek. And what about yourself, Venkat? Are there any other use cases you can add to that?
Adding to the points and perspectives that were shared by Vivek, we see benefits and use cases of LLMs both for the OEMs and the end user. From an OEM standpoint, the large language models are going to be of tremendous value in the sense of enabling quicker development of software, the ability to say detect issues faster and possible fixes for those issues. So there are going to be development tools for validation or other engineering areas like scripting for flashing, etc., and overall faster development and deployment of features. From an end user perspective, what we are seeing is, as Vivek mentioned, Mercedes has already integrated ChatGPT and they are dabbling with it, which means that the predictability of the responses are going to be better. And what LLMs also open up is basically do it yourself applications that users may be able to develop using LLMs and put into their car. And it could also help the user detect a certain problem accurately, which goes both ways for the OEM as well as the end user. So overall, the experience of the car is something that we see is definitely going to improve, and that is also something that we are researching currently at KPIT.
Okay, understood. I mean, you mentioned quite a few use cases there, but are there any potential challenges or limitations making them a reality, both in terms of like the wider theoretical issues as well as the practical, so on the hardware and software side?
Of course, being a relatively new technology, large language models have their share of limitations as well as challenges. So, from a usability standpoint, I think ChatGPT sometimes writes plausible sounding but incorrect or absurd answers. And it is also sensitive to tweaks to input phrasing or attempting the same prompt multiple times. Not to mention overuse of certain phrases and exhibiting biased behavior sometimes as well. And when we talk about practical challenges in implementing ChatGPT, I think the risk of breaches in data privacy and security is quite big. Like with any connected technology, there is a risk of compromising sensitive information such as the driver's personal data. Plus, there are ethical concerns about the potential misuse of ChatGPT. For example, to create deepfake videos and images, impersonating real people online, and even spreading misinformation. Another limitation I could think of is, ChatGPT's potential non-feasibility for smaller organizations, as it is trained on very large amounts of data.
Right. And any LLM is only as good as the data input, training, and the fine tuning. Then its evaluation and continuous monitoring. There are, of course, ethical considerations and possible legal aspects as well. To be able to do this and further provide a good experience, it's going to be an enormous task. There is also a fine line of where you put in into use. And as far as automotive is concerned, since this is an industry with a lot of regulation, OEMs are attempting to put this into production vehicles for safety related aspects like ADAS, powertrain, body, etc. That isn't something that we see happening anytime sooner. So in automotive, the applications are likely to be limited to certain areas of user interaction, connectivity, and those stuff. Yeah. For the OEMs that needs to put LLM to use, there are also going to be cost implications, both on the edge as well as on the cloud. There are again GDPR related audit trail management. For example, how are you going to do an investigation of a serious issue, and how do you audit an LLM from the beginning? Again, there are ethical, legal, and regulatory concerns as well. After having done all of this, the limitation would be how am I going to test this? For example, if there is an LLM that is put into a car, okay, the experience of the user is paramount. And then, it would simply mean that is it culturally giving an answer which is acceptable to the user? Yeah. And all those possible outcomes will have to be tested so that you don't give an unpleasant user experience. Theoretically, the limitation of this model is determined by all of the above, and practically, its utility to the end user is determined by the response and the experience that the end user gets to have for themselves.
Okay, understood. Super interesting. And when we discuss LMMs, the most well-known and relatable reference is, of course, ChatGPT. But can we expect the automotive industry to develop their own versions that are, specifically tailored for improving the driving experience?
Absolutely. There is no doubt that the industry is working extensively on ChatGPT and similar models. If we talk about automakers, I think Mercedes Benz currently has probably the most advanced ChatGPT integration program running. They started an over-the-air optional beta testing program in the US this June for over 900,000 vehicles equipped with their MBUX infotainment system. So what they're looking to do is to use ChatGPT for audio requests through its Hey Mercedes voice assistant and expand the system's capabilities. Eventually, they plan to use the findings from this beta program to further improve their voice assistant and define the rollout strategy for LLMs in more markets and languages. Then General Motors comes to my mind. They announced earlier this year that they could possibly use ChatGPT to enable how to use vehicle features normally found in an owner's manual and programming functions such as garage door code or even including schedules from a calendar. And if we go elsewhere, say for in China, this year's Shanghai Auto Show was flooded with LLM-based AI chatbots. The likes of SAIC, Great Wall Motor, Neo, Li Auto, Xpeng, Cherry, Geely, the list goes on and on. They're all developing their own ChatGPT-like versions. In fact, Geely has already developed a highly versatile large language model, which they plan to debut on their upcoming Galaxy L6 sedan, which is expected to launch in China probably in a month's time. Then there's Baidu also, which is exploring to complete verification of its Ernie bot, which is already being called ChatGPT's Chinese rival. So yes, the industry is quite busy there.
Okay, understood. And then, Venkat, just following up on that, is there a potential new market, like product market here for automotive suppliers specifically? Or do you kind of foresee this as a technology that will most likely be vertically integrated by the car makers themselves?
So today, the LLM models aren't automotive specific, so to speak. When you ask a technical question to these models, the answers are quite generic, and that can lead to a not so useful response for a developer, architect, or a designer who is using it. The car architecture is evolving from isolated systems to SDV architecture, which requires a broader knowledge of the automotive domains for anyone who develops solutions using LLMs. Such LLMs can be leveraged for cross domain scaling support. So, yes, there is definitely a need at an engineering level to develop such automotive specific LLMs. Once we have such LLMs which are more auto-centric, it can then be the point from where the end users start to get benefit in terms of features, responding to car-related use cases, what the user wants to perform, let's say from diagnostics to when to charge their car, to what better route to take, and maybe performing tasks like picking up a grocery on the way, etc. We will have to sort of tie all of this to the outside world for the user to extend beyond the car and continued experiences that they would have. Yeah. We do see the possibility for completely newer products that can use LLM models to provide new entertainment experiences for the end user coming up in the market. This could be in the range of interactions that the user has with the car or getting completely newer insight into one's usage of the car, and further the car providing you with advisory on your travels, etc. To begin with, the integration could be vertical since everyone is trying to do this on their own, as mentioned by Vivek earlier. But we feel that there will be a need for them to come to a common ground due to the regulatory, privacy, legal aspects which needs to be sorted out commonly.
Okay, that's really interesting. That's a good point there. And you mentioned a few OEMs are already working on LLM integration, but do you think it would be a better strategy to be a leader in this area, or perhaps maybe it would be wiser, like, to wait for not only the technology to mature, but also to see, what other car makers have provided and then build on that work?
That's a great point, Alicia. I think what strategy an OEM pursues with regards to large language model integration depends mainly on its larger product strategy and also what branding connotations it prefers to have. For instance, a premium brand that focuses on innovation would obviously seek to be a leader in its development and integration, while a somewhat less premium brand would be prepared to wait for the technology to mature and then build on what's already available. Now, there are also many OEMs who are looking to launch new electric brands on nameplates, particularly in China and Europe. For these companies, it's very important to demonstrate their technology prowess to position their product in a particular way. For these OEMs, it makes sense to seize technology development initiatives rather than adopt what's available in the market. And that applies to anything, be it LLM, generative AI, or any other technology. This is precisely why we see almost every automaker in China developing their own LLM model and tailoring it to their needs.
And Venkat, what's your kind of take on this?
That's an important question, Alicia, which we believe is there in most OEMs' mind. That said, any impulsive reactions to such technology could lead to an unpleasant experience for the end user. For example, blockchain came in as the next big thing, but then the applications that we see today have been largely limited. We feel that it is important to understand the capability and limitations fully and then apply them in stages to provide a stable experience to the end user, which really solves a problem rather than being, just bringing in the technology kind of a thing. It might make sense for automotive companies to come together to see how such a platform can be created and then leverage this for creating their specific models to tailor to the experiences that they want to provide to their end users according to their brands.
Okay, understood. And just on another point here, there's been a mixed response from the industry on the kind of role ChatGPT and similar AI models can play in sort of revolutionizing autonomous driving. Uh, What's your take on this?
That's another interesting question. I'd like to believe that merging ChatGPT with autonomous vehicles can potentially fast track their decision making capabilities. What they can do for autonomous vehicles is provide a qualitative understanding of the various quantitative sensory data. I'll try and explain here. So, autonomous vehicles generally use an algorithm called Motion Planner, which is responsible for generating a path for the autonomous system to follow based on information about the environment. A large language model can integrate with a motion planner in many ways to enable autonomous systems to make informed decisions about how to navigate their environment. For example, if the language model detects a pedestrian crossing the road ahead, the motion planner can use this information to generate a path that avoids the pedestrian. So, language models can be trained on large datasets of textual descriptions of scenes, allowing them to learn the spatial relationships between objects in a particular scenario. This training process can be used to encode the semantic layer for HD maps also, which of course we know are a critical component of autonomous vehicle technology. And apart from these, LLMs can facilitate communication between autonomous vehicles and passengers as well. For instance, an autonomous vehicle could say, I'm slowing down because there's a speed bump ahead, or I'm stopping to let the pedestrian cross, things like that.
AD is about the AI at the core. These, however, aren't the LLM models which are continuously learning non deterministic in its behavior that we see. But AI models which are trained in environment for safety with all possible scenarios being simulated for better handling and response for a deterministic output of the vehicle with safety at its core. That said, as Vivek mentioned about large language models being trained for large data sets for textual descriptions, we do see certain organizations which are attempting this sort of a use case in autonomous driving in specific environments. At KPIT, we see the potential to use generative AI for a spectrum of activities, starting from creation of scenarios from requirements for validation to checking the possibility to have prompts as drive commands or scenario commands to initiate and the action responses.
Okay, understood. And just following up on that, and just before we wrap up today's episode, actually, it would be interesting to know if you personally feel whether LLM integration is a bit of a gimmick or a fad, or do you think they will actually be, a lasting, maybe, and a sort of continually developing in vehicle feature?
That's interesting as well. So, if we look back, models like ChatGPT have been in the development now for nearly a decade, if not more. So, it's difficult for me to understand why ChatGPT created such a sensation when it was launched last November, and the kind of rapid popularity it has garnered over the short span of time in the race among the likes of Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and so many other companies to launch their own versions. Suggests it's not a fad, at least to me. And I also think we need to appreciate that ChatGPT is just a small piece of the larger AI puzzle and that it has just started. So there are already so many stakeholders already leveraging this model in so many ways that I think LLMs are here to stay and will continue to evolve going forward. All in all, I think integration of ChatGPT in the automobile industry will become inevitable as the use cases are very compelling. Perhaps OEMs will have to work very closely with their chosen AI technology provider to not only upgrade the process of data collection from the vehicle, but also set up advanced LLM trainings to enhance their overall AI capability and provide more comprehensive services and functionalities.
Yeah, I think that's a good question to be asked before anyone would want to allocate their budget. So, any technology can be dismissed as a fad if it fails to solve a user problem. We think that we see value in LLMs in the automotive industry, and as a partner, we are working towards their utilization to solve the end problems for our customers. Adding to what Vivek said, in the near term, we see it being focused on faster development time, automation, and start with smaller and newer user experiences.
Okay, understood. Well, great. Thank you for your thoughts on that. And unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. A big thank you to you both for joining Autology.
Well, thanks for having us.
And thank you to all you listeners as well for tuning in. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode at our autology at spglobal.com email. And you can find out much more at autotechinsight.ihsmarket.com. Don't forget to hit all the subscribe, follow, and like buttons to stay on track with the latest Autology podcast. And we look forward to you joining us again in the next episode. Bye for now.